all of us are human, and all of us as humans have great balances in life. And I think balance, when I say balance, I mean in more of the yin and yang, the Lao Tzu, the Taoism type balance, right? And I noticed for athletes, man, like I don't think anyone works harder than the athletes. Maybe I'm biased because I've been an athlete my whole life. And there's a balance to that hard work, right? That grind, that shit, right? There's a balance to that. So you have people who can work endlessly hard, and they have dreams and they have fantasies about how hard they want to work. But I think to balance that out, they also have dreams and they also have a balance about how fucking lazy they want to be sometimes, right? We all have these fantasies as athletes. Like, we all look at food porn, we look at food we want to eat, or sometimes we want to binge, or sometimes we want to just not train and just see how it makes us feel, right? Like, and we have that fantasy, and that fantasy is always there. And I honestly have come to a conclusion for myself that, like, that fantasy is just an illusion. It's not real. Like, I'm just hanging on to this thing that, like, I think is somehow connected to helping me one day, when in the reality, like, it's never going to help me. It's just literally an illusion. It's just literally a dream. And I think it's hard to let go. And it's like, it's one of those things where the grass is always greener on the other side type deal. So if a lot of you don't read Stoicism, you should start. So this, in this book by Epictetus, there's one passage in here that I want to read, and it applies to this topic, and he can say it better than I can ever say it. Whenever you get an impression of some pleasure, as with any impression, guard yourself from being carried away by it. Let it await your action, give yourself a pause. After that, bring to mind both times, first when you enjoyed the pleasure, and later when you will regret it and hate yourself. Then compare to those joy and satisfaction you'd feel from abstaining altogether. However, if a seemingly appropriate time arises to act on it, don't be overcome by its comfort, pleasantness, and allure. But against all of this, how much better the consciousness of conquering it. So I think up to this point, we have had to literally, as athletes, ignore our fantasy of wanting to be lazy, or I can't wait for the day that I don't have to do any of this, and it's bullshit, right? I think, so the method we've used so far to this point has been simply ignoring it. Literally, like I talked about this dual black and white, yin and yang, right? Like, we do all the hard work, but we ignore the bad part. And as Epictetus said, like, you're actually better off if you conquer it every time. Tell me one time you have actually given in to these fantasies of doing nothing, or binging, or being a lazy piece of shit. Like, how has it ever made you feel better? Like, name one time it has ever made you feel better. And it just doesn't. And I think it's hard for us to remember at times, like, dude, like, it's not better not doing what I'm doing. Like, the work I'm doing, the work I'm putting in, the strictness of my training regime, like the strictness of the way I'm eating, like, this is better. And I think if you're so consistent over time, you forget. So I think there's really two reasons why, to help understand and to help avoid this, that I've kind of like remind myself with. And so for the one is that I don't have the book on me, but the book is Flow by Dr. Mihaly. I can't pronounce his last name, but I'll link it. And I've mentioned this in some of my old videos years ago for the old Natty Pro OGs who know this. But essentially, the gateway to depression is underutilization. You cannot be a high-performing athlete who every day you work hard and you kick ass, and then you succumb to this fantasy that being lazy is gonna help, or being a lazy piece of shit, or eating whatever you want is gonna help. Like, you're gonna do this and you're gonna feel worse off. Like, it's just not good for you. Like, it's a fantasy, it's an illusion you've made up in your head, right? Underutilizing yourself, meaning not working your excellence, not working to yourself to the highest level that you are. Like, it's just a dream, really. There's a chart that he uses, and essentially that we have to be in what he calls a flow state, right? I don't want to ruin the book, so you can go read the book if you want to. But essentially, for us to be happy, for us to have some momentum in life, for us to actually feel good, we cannot be underutilized in what we're doing in the spot that he calls underutilization. It will leave you sad, depressed, and overwhelmed, right? So that fantasy you have is your gateway to depression. And literally, dude, and every time you go into it and you literally just go into this abysmal place that you somehow have a fantasy and dream is better, you're actually worse off. And you just have to realize it's really an illusion. The second thing I think it really comes from, wet my whistle, is ego. you have an ego in the, I guess, back id sense of Father Freud, the greatest psychologist we have. I think that I say ego from, you think that you can be above your order. You believe in this fantasy for a few moments that you are good, you can be above your own excellence, your own order, your own discipline, that you can go and be in absolute chaos and you will feel fine. What your ego doesn't realize, and what your own self doesn't realize, is that like the reason you are happy is because your order and your discipline, you feed that into yourself, dude. Like, you feed that shit into yourself. Like, only you make you happy. As Mark Lobliner says, what does he say? He says, nothing works unless you do, right? Your happy buttons, your feeling good buttons won't work unless you put work in. If you keep thinking egotistically that you are above this, that, oh, I can get away with eating whatever I want or taking a week off, like, yes, you reap what you sow. It's yin and yang. If you are lazy, you get lazy. If you work hard, you get good feeling. It's pretty straightforward. So I think moving forward, having an understanding of the fundamental why and how your fantasy is just a fantasy, well, hopefully next time you want to go and do this thing, you just choose against it. And as Epictetus says, you'll realize that you'll feel better if you do. So if you like this topic and you want to add something, please comment. I'd love for you to add to the conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you like the video, please like the video. If you don't like it, then you obviously, or you haven't made it this far in the video and you've X'd me out a long time ago. And please subscribe if you want more of this to keep coming.